In a time long past, when the great river Nile flowed alongside the vast and ancient land of Egypt, there was a people enslaved and burdened under harsh masters. Among these captives was a child born into humble obscurity, a child destined to become one of history's most pivotal leaders. A miraculous beginning. Moses' earliest moments were steeped in both danger and divine providence. Pharaoh, fearing the growing number of Hebrew slaves, had decreed that every newborn Hebrew boy be cast aside. Yet, in the quiet of a humble home, Moses' mother cradled her son with fierce love and determination. In an act of desperate hope, she placed the infant in a small basket and set him adrift on the Nile. By a twist of fate, the basket was discovered by none other than Pharaoh's own daughter. Moved by the child's innocence, she rescued him from the river and, despite the edict, raised him as her own. Thus, Moses grew up in the splendor of the royal household, never knowing that his destiny was intricately intertwined with the plight of his people. A man torn between two worlds. As Moses matured, the conflicting voices of his heritage and his royal upbringing called to him. Walking the palace halls, he observed the splendor of Egypt, even as his heart ached for the suffering of the Hebrews. One fateful day, while witnessing an Egyptian overseer brutally striking a Hebrew slave, Moses' inner turmoil ignited a spark of defiance. In a moment of passionate outrage, he struck down the oppressor. The act, though born of compassion for his kin, forced Moses into exile. Fleeing the wrath of an enraged society, he wandered into the desolate lands of Midian, where he would soon find not only refuge, but a new beginning. In the wilderness of destiny, in the quiet solitude of Midian, Moses embraced a simpler life as a shepherd, tending the flocks on rugged, sun-baked hills. It was during these reflective days that destiny prepared its next call. One day, as Moses shepherded his flock near the foot of Mount Horeb, he beheld a sight that would forever change his life. A bush ablaze with fire, yet miraculously untouched by the flames. Drawn to this wonder, Moses approached, only to hear the unmistakable voice of the divine. The voice revealed itself as the eternal I Am, commissioning Moses to return to Egypt and deliver his people from the shackles of oppression. Hesitant and unworthy in his own eyes, Moses doubted his ability to confront a mighty empire. Yet the call was clear. He was to be the instrument of liberation, a prophet and leader for his people. Returned to Egypt in the struggle for freedom. Armed with divine authority and accompanied by his brother Aaron, who would stand by him as both spokesperson and companion, Moses set out for Egypt. The journey back was fraught with uncertainty, but Moses' resolve was unwavering. In the grand courts of Pharaoh's palace, he boldly demanded, "Let my people go." His words echoed against the stone walls. Yet Pharaoh's heart was hardened. In response, a series of calamities began to fall upon Egypt. First came the plague that turned the sacred Nile to blood. Then a torrent of frogs, a swarm of insects, and boils that afflicted the Egyptians. With each new plague, the darkness that swallowed the land, and at last, the heartbreaking death of the firstborn, Pharaoh's defiance crumbled. Finally, overwhelmed by grief and fear, Pharaoh relented, allowing the Hebrews to leave their bondage. The miraculous Exodus. The moment of deliverance was both triumphant and terrifying. Under Moses' guidance, the Israelites gathered their few belongings and stepped into the unknown, leaving behind centuries of suffering. As they journeyed through the desert, they were led by a mysterious pillar, a cloud by day and a glowing fire by night, that marked God's continual presence among them. But freedom would not come without sacrifice. When Pharaoh's remorse turned to revenge, his armies pursued the fleeing people. At the edge of the vast Red Sea, hope seemed all but lost. Then, in a moment of divine intervention, Moses stretched out his hand over the turbulent waters. With a roar like the breaking of chains, the sea split, revealing a dry path for the Israelites. As they hurried across, the pursuing Egyptians found themselves swallowed by the returning depths, a miraculous escape that would be recounted through the ages. A covenant written in stone. Once free, the Israelites camped at the foot of Mount Sinai, a rugged peak that beckoned with mystery and promise. It was here that Moses ascended the mountain to commune with God in a setting shrouded in awe and thunder. For 40 days and 40 nights, he dwelt in a sacred silence, receiving laws and commandments that would form the moral bedrock of his people, the 10 Commandments. These words, carved by divine hand onto stone tablets, were more than mere rules. They were a covenant, a binding promise between God and the people of Israel. Yet even as Moses descended with the commandments, he found his people straying. In his absence, fear and uncertainty had led them to fashion a golden calf, an idol of tarnished metal and shattered promises. In anguish and righteous anger, Moses shattered the tablets, a poignant symbol of broken trust, and interceded on behalf of his people, pleading for forgiveness and renewal. Years of wandering and the price of redemption. The journey that lay ahead was long and fraught with trials. The Israelites wandered in the barren wilderness for 40 years, a time marked by miracles and challenges alike. In the harsh desert, when hunger and thirst threatened to undo the fragile freedom they had won, God provided sustenance in the form of manna falling from the sky and water gushing from hidden rocks. Throughout these years, Moses stood as a steadfast leader. He mediated disputes, delivered divine judgment, and bore the weight of a people who oscillated between hope and despair. His relationship with God was intimate and direct, characterized by moments of fervent prayer, quiet intercession, and even frustration as he witnessed rebellion and forgetfulness among his people. Despite the burdens and the human failings that marred the long sojourn, Moses' faith never wavered, and his legacy as the man of God was solidified by his unwavering commitment to the covenant. The final ascent. At long last, the wanderers approached the threshold of a promised land, a fertile expanse flowing with milk and honey, spoken of in ancient prophecies. Yet for Moses, the journey would end before he could set foot in this new inheritance. A moment of personal failure in the wilderness, an act of disobedience born of frustration, cost him the honor of entering the land he had labored so hard to secure for his people. Instead, Moses was granted one final grace, a chance to view the promised land from afar, from the summit of Mount Nebo. In a quiet, bittersweet farewell, Moses gazed upon the land that would become a beacon of hope for generations to come. His life, marked by divine encounters, epic challenges, and moments of profound vulnerability, drew to a close as he passed the mantle of leadership to Joshua, the man chosen to guide Israel into its future. A legacy etched in time. Moses' story is not merely one of miraculous events and legendary feats. It is a timeless narrative of liberation, faith, and the enduring human spirit. He emerged from the crucible of adversity as a leader who dared to confront tyranny, who communed with the divine, and who bore the heavy burdens of expectation and hope. His life reminds us that greatness often rises from the most humble beginnings, and that the path to freedom is paved with both trials and triumphs. As the man of God, Moses became the bridge between heaven and earth, a prophet whose legacy continues to inspire, challenge, and illuminate the hearts of those who seek justice and truth. Thus unfolds the complete story of Moses, a tale of divine intervention, relentless courage, and the unyielding pursuit of a better future for a people destined for greatness.